Mm. Meridian, I don't know if you can see me or not, but I'm going to send you a text, Daniel. So if you see this, let me know how it looks on your end. Good morning, Tracy. Send me a side message there on the chat if you can hear me. Oh, looks great. Thank you, Daniel. Folks, if we do not have more than about 10 folks, and hopefully we have a lot of folks, thank you, Tracy. I'll turn everybody on and we'll all just see each other and talk over each other. In the classroom at Meridian. Hello, Meridian. Hello, Gulf Coast. Community College. Sorry. Ooh, official. Ready to go. Folks who are live, I'm going to change the screen for a moment and be back in just a couple of moments. Good morning to everybody.
Hello.
Hey, V, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Fine. I'm going to do an introduction, but you'll be live in the background, so I may knock you back off here for a moment, but I got you though, okay?
Okay. Where's my screen?
So, good morning, everybody. We're going to get going in just a moment. I'd love in the side chat, whatever school you, if you will do a shout out. A couple of these I recognized, but I would love to sit there and see more. But on the side chat, if you can't see that at the top of your screen, I know everybody is Zoom savvy, but at the top of your screen where it says view, if you don't see yours, you can go where it says view on your Zoom menu at the top. Drop down the bottom. You can sit there and say show chat. Okay. All right. Good morning. I'm punching a bunch of buttons this morning. Somebody send me a side chat and tell me if you can see me or if you're looking at V, our first presenter. Somebody go off the side for a moment. Hello, Gulf Coast Community College, Meridian. I see Jeff. Thank you, guys. Hey, good morning, everyone. I've got a couple of housekeeping notes here. At this point, hopefully everybody's received the agenda where we're going to record these. And because of that, I've got it kind of like giving the credits to the movie. I'm going to put a couple of housekeeping chores here at the beginning. Also, we expect some other people to show up. So right now, if we were in person, it'd be the big hug. Everybody would get coffee and all the free donuts and the t-shirt and the goodie bags and the sign in and the candy dishes. We don't have any of those. So that's it. So good morning, everybody. Let me go ahead. I got a couple of notes here, so I'm going to take my eyes off you and go over here. First of all, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is obviously the Mississippi Ad Federation Student AdCon, or we're calling it SAC for short. This is actually a growth of an event that's been held in Jackson for 20 plus years that all the schools have attended over the years. I'm going to give a big shout out in a moment to the Jackson Ad Fed, but let me go down the list. So I'm Jeff Jones, and I'm an Ad Fed member and also an assistant educational person, and the one whose face you'll be seeing today. But there's a lot of other people that we'll talk about in a moment. I'm also a college educator, a former educator, and I probably have met or been on many of your campuses or worked with you and somehow in the past before. So first of all, there's 3 sessions today, and there is a different Zoom link. We figured that'd be easier for people to come in and out to record these. And if something goes wrong, we could get back and in. So right now you've zoomed into here. We'll be through, V will come up in a moment and we'll finish his a few minutes before, but we'll have to start over again in the second Zoom link, which you should have. And then there's going to be a break for lunch. I'm sorry, we'll do one at 10 and then a second Zoom at 11. After Ryan Farmer from Mad Genius gets through before 12, we're going to break for lunch. There's no food or goodie bag this time, guys. But there is a web link, a showcase that many of you are uploading artwork to. If you have not seen that, please visit. And I'm going to talk more about that. But from now through lunch, if you upload something, it'll be held up. When you load something, there is delay. Somebody actually has to, there's about 3 of us. Somebody has to put an eyeball on it just to make sure that it's formatted well and make sure there's something that doesn't get us sued or fired or in trouble with my mother's prayer list at a church. So if you're uploading something during this event, they will probably be held on the server until somebody has an eyeball to put on there. So right now till noon, something fresh, if you're uploading something out, won't go in. But if you have not had a chance to visit that, I'll put up that address in a moment. But you can upload 3 pieces of work. And the neat part about it is when you do it, it does not display your name or your school. So it's just like putting a piece of work out there for the general public to see. But it's a great tool. Any of you can go through, even if you don't load artwork, if you're an instructor or student or somebody industry professional, please go ahead and log into it. And you can go through there and you can leave comments. And those are going to be positive comments. You can also do a rating related to general concept, design, typography, and presentation. We invited schools from around the state. There are some high schools. We have some really performing high schools, and I'm hoping Gulfport High School's in here. So Kyle, if you're in here somewhere, do a shout out on the side. Also Clinton. We hit the 2-year schools, specifically Meridian and Northwest Community College and Hines Community College and Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. By the way, I forgot to tell y'all, I am coming from today. I am at Transmedia Creative Advertising. In a moment, I'm going to throw out some names. So if you're watching, I encourage you to make a couple of notes, visit these web links, reach out to these industry professionals. So right now, everybody's in your bubble or Zoom bubbles as we are. But when you get out in the world, you'll get to meet a lot of these people and you'll work with those. So today we are one large happy group representing the state. And I'm here for personal reasons because I love what we do and I like to see people work here and better what we do. So I mentioned the place, the showcase. You can upload some stuff. We're going to leave it up for at least a week, if not longer. So if you have not uploaded something yet, please do so. Maximum of 3 pieces, give a little description. But we're going to ask some industry professionals to scroll through those. If you're a teacher at any school, this is a great chance to see what other people are doing. If you are just starting out, a freshman or learning, this is a great chance to put your work out there and spend some time with other people. So it's a great tool for you. If you are at the top of your game, a grad student, this is your chance to show your chops as far as being an art director or an editor. Go through there and lend that information. If you got a better type font or something about kerning and spacing, or a web link for some stock photos. If you're a teacher and you want to ask a question about a potential student, this is a tool for us as a group. It's a friendly space. So this is not a contest or a rite of passage, but we'll all work together and do a great thing. So again, this will stay up for at least a week, as long as it's getting activity. So if you have not loaded something into the showcase, please do so. Okay. After at 1 o'clock, after we feed you, no food, we're going to do a Q&A section. And right now, Cece Shabazz, and some of you have been doing this while I know Cece, but she's the brand and marketing strategist at Memorial Hospital. She leads the creative team there. Also, Jessica Broom, she's the advertising manager for Keesler Federal Credit Union. I'll be in there just pressing buttons today. But there may be some other folks also joining, but right now, those are our two experts. Also this morning, during the other two sessions, the one at 10 here with V and 11 at Ryan, if you want to post stuff in the side chat, they'll be able to see those. And if we don't get a chance to answer some of those, we will also address those this afternoon. So if you have questions and about industry and different things, save those again in the Q&A section this afternoon. Okay. I mentioned this event is made up of Mississippi professionals. So everybody here is from the state, plus a lot of attendees or people who are helping with this have actually been in positions that y'all are in now. This event has been held at other locations. I'm going to mention that in a minute. But past attendees, I have photos of the director from the aquarium, pretty much every resort or casino, hospital, advertising agencies, the creative director over at Community Coffee and Lamar Outdoor Advertising, and the list goes on and on and on, statewide space centers. But these were all students at one time that attended a similar event you're here now. So I know we're zoomed out, Zoom fatigue, but hopefully today is worthwhile, get you out of your bubble and helps you connect with people in industry and other schools. Okay. So we reached out, by the way, to every school in the state. If you have a peer or a student somewhere else, please share. I know you could do a selfie view online in a moment, but share this with fellow students at other schools. I'm hoping we're setting the groundwork today to returning to in-person, maybe back in the central part of the state next year. So any educators, students, professionals, if you have suggestions, my email is probably, you received it at some point, reach out to me and tell me what you would like to see in the future. So fingers crossed, okay? This is a response to COVID. We're gonna give a huge shout out to the Jackson Ad Fed. There's been an event called Merge and Capital Gains, been going on over 20 years, 20 plus years. And the Jackson Ad Fed and Coast Ad Fed, and used to be the Pine Belt, and folks coming down from South Haven and Oxford participated in that. And last year it got canceled. It wasn't gonna happen this year. So this is a response, or in response to hopefully starting something bigger and better. And we look forward to see everybody in person. That means food and goodie bags and industry professionals and all kinds of fun, cool stuff. So hopefully again, next year, we can all be in person, okay? So where was it? Oh yeah, I want to shout out real quick, Jackson State's e-commerce center, Bellhaven, Mississippi College. They have all hosted this event. They had great food services and we had celebrities and folks there. So thank you for the people who've done this before. This is not Merge that's normally held in Jackson, but it is, we're standing on their shoulders trying to have something this year. So this is our response of trying to do something, okay? Now, I'm gonna put out a couple of names here. I'm gonna hand it over to V. So I'm already 10 minutes after. First of all, our first session is with V, like the letter, from Solve Design Studios. So if y'all wanna Google or look on social media for Solve Design or V like the letter. Ryan Farmer with Mad Genius will be our 10 o'clock. The last thing is we've had a large number of group of people who've attributed this, and I need to put out a couple names. First of all, Mara Craig, senior designer, Singing River Health Systems. She's also our AdFed president. Alex Weems is our creative. So if you like any of the logos and stuff that's come out from the AdFed, he's the senior multimedia designer at Scarlet Pearl. Eric Oliver with Future Design Group, that's an agency. So if y'all want to look up Future Design Group, They do web, and he also, if you like our showcase, he's the one that programmed all that, letting us use his server space. Today, I'm at Transmedia Creative. Again, you look that up, Transmedia in Gulfport. I'm not at my home base. Also, I'm using Transmedia's Zoom account and Jeff Harrison. So if you see an avatar of me, it's not me. But I am in their design studio or in one of their photo studios, and it's full of camera equipment. So everybody gets cameras for Christmas. So, you know, you get a camera, I get a camera. But huge thanks to Jeff Harrison, Transmedia. Paul Maroney with Hancock Whitney, he's their digital marketing management. He's been our contact with Mad Genius, so thank you, Paul. Paige Ann Stevens with Christie Fountain Advertising. So if y'all want to Google Christie Fountain Advertising, she's our educational chair and has been our leader. She's the one that's pushing this, and she's going to join in with us in just a few moments. So Paige Ann Stevens with Christie Fountain Advertising. And then lastly, to all the educators, instructors out there that we've worked with over the years, there's been a big turnover, so there's a lot of new instructors. You are appreciated. And again, this was designed with educators and Mississippi, with Mississippi students in mind. So if you have suggestions or want to do something in the future, please let your local ad fed know. Well, folks, that's my 10 minutes. So at this point, I'm pressing buttons today. So if we get lost, I will try to find y'all. So let me go over here real quick and let me get V, and I'm going to make V the host. So V's going to unmute, and I'm going to hit more, and I'm going to promote him to a panelist. So there's V. And V, I'm going to sit there and turn it over to you in just a moment. So 1 second, please. Hey, V, I can see you're a panelist. Can everybody, somebody on the side over there, tell me if you can see V. By the way, V's the cool one. I'm going to give him a big build up here in a minute. He rightly deserves. But V, I'm going to turn it over so you can also use your screen and give you control. So more, make a host. There you go.
All right.
Change host. So you're in control. Okay.
All right, let me, I'm blowing out my whites over here with the light. So, all right, that looks better.
V, I'm going to sit there and say, folks, if y'all can still hear me, somebody say, you can still hear Jeff on the side. I think you can. I'm going to hit mute in just a moment. But if you can't hear me, V has done this for a couple of times in years for us in Jackson, and he was my go-to #1 name, and I'm so glad that he's here. So I know I'm putting pressure on him right now. I'm going to hit mute and turn it over. V, thank you so much.
All right, are you muted? Am I good to go? All right, cool. All right, so let me start by sharing my screen, I guess. Let's go to my PDF over here. All right, that's not what I want. All right, this is weird. Not used to this. All right, so I guess I'm the first speaker today. So I'm going to be talking today about I called the conference Immigrant, and you know, there's sort of like I'm an immigrant. You know, there's the migrant and under case as well. Basically, it has to do with well, first off, I am not originally from around here. I am originally from Tegucigalpa, Honduras, the very, very deep south of the border, is usually what I tell people. And I came here to the United States several years ago. It's 2006. And I came here to study my master's in graphic design. And I did that in upstate New York, in Rochester. And then after that, my brother Pablo was living in Jackson because he had moved from Syracuse down to work with Entergy Corporate down to Jackson. So as soon as I finished my degree, I came down chasing him, you know, free rent and whatever, free bills. So that was pretty cool. I'm not having to pay that stuff, you know, just live with your brother. So that was pretty awesome. And eventually this is where I found my job with a Solve Design Studio. And that's been about 12 years. In that time, I've also sort of started my own thing, and that's V Like the Letter. And that was several years ago. I was freelancing, and then little by little, I'm kind of just, you know, doing half Solve and then half on my own, and kind of, you know, doing that. So that's basically a little bit of my background. So um, this talk is not going to be about like immigration per se, like, you know, the political issue, but it has to do with the word of immigration and migration. So for example, the difference, you see these terms thrown around a lot in the news. If you're an immigrant and or if you're a migrant anyways, um, what is the difference between them? One is an immigrant is somebody who moves to establish permanent residence, versus a migrant. If you're migrating somewhere, you are temporarily moving. And I think the most important part of this distinction right over here is um, migrant part is who is purposefully on the move in search of a better life. And I think I like that a lot because if you're doing it purposefully, then you're doing it with an intention. And I like that a lot. So I'm going to translate that as a metaphor towards graphic design and communications in general. So my permanent residency is with graphic design. That is my home, right?
V, can you
Yeah,
hear me? V, can you hear
yes.
me? Right now, we're getting a black screen. We just want to verify that's what you have up on your computer right now. It's a blank screen.
Sharing, resume. Oh, what happened here? I'm pressing resume share.
Okay.
Um,
I'll
let's see
check.
what
So it
happened.
says we're sharing your screen. I see your camera.
Okay, let me see. Let me stop that.
Okay. I see you now.
Okay, what happened here?
Didn't mean to interrupt, but we couldn't tell if you were building us up or if you actually had a black screen. There we go. We see it now.
All right, were you guys able to see the previous screen, this screen over here?
We did not. You're doing a great build up, but there was no visual. So now we see it. So
Okay, so all right, so I'll continue from here. So this was the, you know, just the difference between permanent residency and then temporary movement. And then right over here in the bottom is where it says an individual who is purposefully on the move. I think that's the part where I want to go continue with. You are screen sharing. All right, perfect. So my permanent residency, my formal education is in graphic design, but I've sort of become, especially after COVID, we've been sort of kind of forced to first, you know, work remotely, which fortunately with Solve Design Studio, I had already been working remotely for a while. So we had anticipated working from home and remotely way before COVID ever happened. So when this happened, we were already ready. We, you know, this is my home office right over here, what you're seeing. So I was pretty much ready to go. I had all the stuff I needed and etc. But at the same time, I think, I don't know if it happened the same for everybody, but at least for my business, um, I I felt like we were like the world needed to catch up to people working remotely, as well as people finally sort of understood that what was happening in the world was this digital movement, that we were moving towards our phone more. So people needed to start advertising through the mediums where people were, and people are on their phones the entire time. Even though they were home, they were on their phones their entire time. So what I'm trying to say with all of this is my migration. I've throughout my career, I've always migrated as a hobby to doing different things. So for example, I've sort of as a hobby used to do photography as a hobby, you know, or forced to do when now that I do so much social media management, I'm sort of forced to having to copyright as well. Even though English is my second language, I'm having to, you know, be different personas throughout the day for different accounts, right? I also have done a lot of, you know, UX and UI in the last year or so. Some videography, as well as, you know, some muralism, some graffiti, and some installation. I've also learned how to, you know, woodwork in my free time. So usually it's these hobbies that I'm migrating to that have taught me and have made me more of a multidisciplinary designer. And I think that's where we are sort of moving in the world is, yes, you have big advertising agencies and you have big businesses, but as a freelance graphic designer, you can sort of be a jack of all trades and always go back to your home, right? So you can migrate to different areas and learn, and then you can also take those migrations and whatever you learn and that cultural impact, culture shock, you know. So for example, I didn't know how to do photography when I first picked up a camera, but I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos and I watched a whole bunch of TikTok videos, and I've learned so much from those videos. So I'm taking that information and all the stuff that I've learned and I'm applying it towards my own business. So I'm becoming a jack of all trades and all in one, my own personal, remote little marketing agency. And that's a cool thing, because you can always work for the man and work for a big company, but it's very different when you work for a big company than when you're working for yourself. And I think I like that. I like working for myself because I'm working for my own goals and my own dreams. And I think I'm not saying that I, don't want to be where I'm at. I'm really happy with the 12 years that I spent at Solve Design Studio being their art director. But at the same time, I'm really excited on how much my freelance business has grown, especially in this past year due to COVID. So I'm going to go through two case studies of stuff that I've been through in the last year. And I've also have a whole bunch of other stuff on some folders if I have the time to share those with you today. So let's go with the first case study, and that's the Green Ghost Tacos Mexican restaurant down in Fondren. Cesar Torres contacted me. Most probably it was December of 2019, and we kind of got together and talked about maybe starting a working relationship where I would handle his social media. So we sat down around February, we signed a contract, and then March came around and COVID hit, right? And a bunch of restaurants were hit hard. They were not ready for what was going to happen. And Green Ghost Tacos, with my help and of course, everybody kind of working together, we were able to survive the pandemic and actually have the biggest year that we've ever had before. And I take ownership of this stuff whenever I say we, and it's because I'm so linked to this account now. It kind of feels like my own baby as well. So I'm going to go through the demographics of Green Ghost Tacos. And this is basically it. The left screen is the Instagram, that one that says 70-30. And that means that 70% of the people that follow this Instagram account are women versus 30% that are men. I mean, that's a huge gap, right? And I remember when I first sat down with Cesar and he was telling me about Green Ghost Tacos, he wanted his Instagram account to sort of mimic what Saltine was doing down in Fondren. But the thing is, the ticket price at Saltine is very different from the ticket price at Green Ghost. At Green Ghost, your ticket price, if you go alone, it might be somewhere, between $25 to $30. That's including a margarita, some chips, and some tacos. If you go to Saltine, your ticket price is way higher. So that means that whatever you are branding or the look and feel that you're trying to sort of create has to be geared towards the sort of people that can afford the type of food that is being served at Green Ghost Tacos. So in this case, it was very interesting to me to notice that Jackson, the population in Jackson, is the main follower of this account. If you look over here, Madison, Brandon, Clinton, and Ridgeland, they're like 6% and lower. That means that almost half of the population just lives in Jackson. All right. And their ages are between the ages of 25 to 45. That means that these are not young people in college, or this is already a working professional that is visiting this place. All right. So that was one interesting thing to notice about the demographics. The other thing I started noticing was that the demographic that Cesar was trying to sort of appeal to was not the demographic that he was supposed to be appealing to. And I noticed this on the far right screen. If you look at the things that people are following, they're following Tasty. So that means they follow, a blog about food. They follow Clarion Ledger. They follow Ellen DeGeneres and Steve Harvey. But it was interesting when I started looking at the musicians and I started looking at the artists that these guys follow. And I started noticing that these are African-American artists and entertainers. That means that these 25 to 45-year-olds that live mostly in Jackson are most probably from the demographic of the African-American community. You would think that a Mexican restaurant would appeal a lot to Hispanic people or to the Caucasian people, but in this case, this particular restaurant is appealing to at least the people that are following the Instagram and Facebook account are African American. So I had to go and I had to look at what was happening behind the scenes. All right, but first I'll start with this. One of the coolest things about working on this project was trying to come up with the visual identity, what the look and feel was going to be, what the brand was going to feel like, and what it was going to look like. So I started getting a lot of just inspiration on this mood board on what sort of things we could use. And I really like this big taqueria image on the left. I was walking around in Nashville one time, and me and my wife got some tacos, and this is the place where we got the tacos from. And I was so intrigued because in our countries, in my countries especially, we do this sort of stuff where we use our walls to write our menus, and it's just very what's the word I'm looking for? But it just belongs to my culture. It is very like that. But also, if you ever go to the Delta, you'll notice that they also do this sort of like signage and sort of culture. And I was like, oh, that was very interesting to me too. So could I marry this and use this as a identifier in the brand? So I came up with a font. I'm not a typographer at all. I mean, I like typography, but I'm not a creator of fonts. I'm not a typographer. But this whole multidisciplinary thing that I've been talking about kind of has forced me into sort of creating my own stuff as well. So pulperia, the word pulperia is a small grocery store, convenience store in my country. And usually here you have commercial districts and malls. A pulperia can be anywhere. It can be smack in the middle of your neighborhood, and you can go there and you can go get a Coca-Cola and a piece of bread and some Doritos and then go back home. So it's this little shop, this very cultural thing that I own that kind of mimicked that big wall with all the type and really interesting lettering. And I wanted to create something like that for Gringos Tacos, and I did. And this is basically the font that I've sort of created. And I've migrated to this font, to this to the style. I guess I don't like to use the word style, but I migrated to something I'm not used to doing, and that's creating fonts and types. But it started creating this visual identity for what Gringos Tacos would become. Similarly, this is the application on what happened with that font and how we started applying it to their social media so that it would set itself apart from what other people were doing in downtown Fondren. All right. You'll notice here this graphic of our governor that got us into a lot of heat when we first took it out. I remember that on Instagram, that post did magnificent, but on Facebook, we just started getting comments from people saying that, we were too liberal and that they were never going to eat at our restaurant ever again. And it was just really funny to me. The power of graphics can make that happen, especially after all the turmoil we've been through politically speaking, right? All right, so when I talked about learning to speak the language of your demographic, that's sort of like me moving to another country and having to learn another language. So I've already given you the demographics, but what was lacking in the imagery that we were producing for Gringos Tacos was that we were lacking that African American demographic eating the food at the restaurant. So we started reaching out to some of the people that followed our account, and this is Denise right over here, Chelsea Denise. And Chelsea, she's always liking our posts, she's always commenting, she's always participating. So I asked her to come in so that I could take some photography of her, just enjoying some food. And I also, we gifted her with some gift cards. And she was super happy to come and do it. Other demographics that we sort of visited was this, the majority, the 70%, the women. So we have Taco Tuesday is pretty crazy, especially now with the National Guard being downtown. We have all these female National Guards that go and visit us every Tuesday for Taco Tuesday. So at one point, I was doing a photo shoot one day of some food, and I had all these tacos that I was not going to eat. And I'm like, you know what? Let's go give it to our men and women in the service, right? And I gave them all these tacos, and I'm like, here you go, guys. And that's the picture right down there. Another thing that we sort of did was in order to appeal to the demographic was the indie music week over in Jackson. I mean, that's one of the biggest music festivals, down in Mississippi, especially in downtown Jackson, and that takes place in January. So we talked with Cesar, and Green Ghost was very happy to participate and kind of push the boundaries and offer, you know, their location for the festival, and that was pretty good. So that's the demographics, and trying to learn to speak the language of, you know, who we're talking to. The same thing I was talking about women, the 70%. So we kind of created this mascot for Green Ghost Tacos, even though we weren't really trying to go for it. But you know, you always have, you know, on Thursdays you always have these restaurants being like, hey, it's ladies night. But you know, I wanted to capture the essence of a modern day Frida Kahlo, not the one that we're used to seeing, you know, in the Mexican paintings, but what would she look like if she were to live nowadays, here in our times, right? Which probably she would have an Adidas jumpsuit, you know, and that Adidas jumpsuit will most probably have something vintage like the old 70 Mexican World Cup logo on it. We also use this mascot for other stuff. You know, we used it for humanitarian and social causes. Whenever it was time to go vote, you know, we used Frida out there. You know, we posted her and we're like, hey, you know, go vote, man. You know, this is your right. Whenever downtown Jackson, after Snowmageddon, lost all that water, you know, Frida, you know, Green Ghost offered a whole bunch of cases of water to whoever wanted to come and pick them up for free. So we used our Frida mascot, or this woman, this empowered woman, to promote that we were giving water. We usually, right now, we recently just, you know, signed a contract for, you know, we're going to be sponsoring the Mississippi Braves. So Frida is there, you know, repping her local Braves, you know, gear. So that's ways that we can do this. And at the same time, I don't know if you guys have been at Green Ghost Tacos, but the majority of the staff is actually female, which is very interesting too. So we wanted to highlight the stories behind the food. So this is when I was talking about, you know, me migrating into copywriting. I had to interview these ladies and had to get to know them, had to get to talk to them so that I could tell their stories. So every Thursday, instead of promoting drink specials, we were actually promoting ladies' night by highlighting ladies that worked at Green Ghost Tacos. And this is the repertoire of at least, you know, a couple of the people that work here. Some people have left, you know, we have some new staff coming in. But yeah, I mean, if this doesn't show you diversity, then what does, you know? Also, that big mural you see in the back, whenever it comes to photography or whenever it comes to design, sometimes there's a term thrown out there called the sense of place. And that's where there's a lot of vernacular culture around you that gives you a sense of place, that lets you know exactly where you are. And that mural tells you you're in downtown Fondren, Jackson, Mississippi. That mural is big, it's humongous, it's located in the patio at Green Ghost Tacos. So whenever we were deciding a backdrop for these portraits, then we needed to come up with a backdrop that would be easily recognizable, right? So that's the backdrop right there. All right, so these are the analytics of what happened. I've been managing the account for about 1 year and 2 months. And you would have thought that with COVID, like things would have come crumbling down, and they didn't. We had the biggest year yet. Just in Google searches, we had 500,000 hits. That was people just looking to order online from Green Ghost Tacos. On Instagram, our following, without having to pay anybody or get any bots, it was all organic and unpaid for. We went from 1,300 people to almost 3,500 people in 1 year. On Facebook, we grew as well, which Facebook nowadays, because of their algorithms, if you're not paying, it's really hard to grow. But we actually went up another 1,200 users on Facebook. So that means that we started reaching out to those people, and people started listening and started looking for us. And, you know, so also right now in January, Green Ghost Tacos won JFP's 2021 Best of Jackson in Mexican. It won second place in WLBT's Best Taco Spot. The Foodie Flashpacker blog named Green Ghost Tacos an 18 must-try Jackson, Mississippi restaurant. The Daily Meal said it was the best Mexican in every state, as well as Yahoo. I mean, these are big milestones for a restaurant, you know, whose square footage is very small in downtown Fondren and who didn't really have that big of a following. So here you go. I mean, you know, Some people thought that all the restaurants were going to go down during COVID, and look at that, this restaurant actually grew. All right, so now I want to talk about another company which I do work for, and these are European Auto Repair. They used to be called European Automotive, and they're a little repair shop here in Jackson by 51. And this is completely the opposite from Gringos Tacos. Like if Gringos Tacos was geared towards women in that demographic, this is completely geared towards men. And I'm going to show you the analytics over here. So if you see, it is 66% of the people that follow this Facebook account and this Instagram account are men. And by the way, this is a shop that has been in existence since 1970 something. I mean, they've been in business for more than 45 years, but they didn't have a Facebook account and they didn't have an Instagram account. And when the pandemic hit, we had to build a new website. We had to, get their graphics up to date. So, it was very interesting to see that whenever it comes to something like fixing your cars or, automobile stuff, like, this account, really reaches out towards that male population, that grungy, gritty, I need to fix my ride sort of, population. You can see in the numbers that Madison, Jackson, and Ridgeland were actually the ones that are, following this account, not so much Brandon and Flowood. And then if you look at the last screen, you'll notice, I thought this was really funny that the people that are following this account also like Eminem and Adam Sandler, right? Caucasian individuals, right? They also like funny stuff like Mississippi Department of Memes, and they like pages like Save Jackson that, kind of go back to that, old Americana sort of culture and, saving what still exists from that old Jackson. They like Joe Rogan, I guess, they like fights and, and MMA. They also follow Ben and Candy Carson. That means it is very Republican heavy, most probably the people that follow this. It was interesting to see that they also like food. They like tasty, just like Gringos Tacos. I thought that was funny. And then you can see their favorite TV shows is Family Guy, which I thought was pretty interesting that they like comedy. So whenever we came up with their photography, I started working on something more dark, more contrast in the image, a lot of, pop in some colors. So the blues were very bright, right? Leaning towards that teal, and the oranges were more dirtier and the yellows more dirtier. The reds were more rusty. So I was trying to look for that male sort of like, Tim the Toolman Taylor feel to their actual look and feel in their photography, at least. It's interesting. We did portraits for our people, for the guys that work over at the shop. We also did a portrait for their dog. They actually have a garage dog that just kind of hangs out. Her name is Izzy, and they call her a therapy dog just because every time they bring out the bill, because they're European cars, so the repair of a car is not that cheap, right? So whenever they bring out the bill for people, they bring down the dog comes and lays down with people, so they could kind of pet the dog so they're not in shock because the bill's too high. Anyways, but we did portraits for all these guys, like macho guys that work on engines and work on cars, like looking a little bit more vulnerable. We told their story, who they were, what they do, where they come from. And those had very great exposure and a lot of following. People were very happy to see, these guys and their wives. It's funny because their wives would tell me that these guys have most probably never taken a real professional photo before. Like if you look at their social media accounts, it's basically non-existent. They never post a picture of themselves, but their wives do. So they were very happy to see that these guys were getting pictures of them taken. And I thought that was actually pretty cool too. This is how their social media is looking. You would think, what I wanted to transmit over here was I wanted to use the sans serif type in order to transmit that, that Swiss, German, European feel. I also wanted to still use those images that were very grungy, very oily, very dirty, because the work is very dirty. And then have those really big pops of color that come through and keep it consistent throughout. We can see a little bit of the comedy as well in their posts. So for example, the one in the far right corner, who is the real Mr. Know-It-All. That's kind of funny because all three of these guys, believe that they know it all whenever it comes to cars. So we posted that and we wanted to see what people would vote for to get some engagement. And you know, the results were actually pretty equal for everyone, which I thought was really funny. Anyways, so this is what their website sort of started looking like. We didn't have to build them into anything complicated. Sometimes people believe that with website design, you're supposed to, you know, get these, you know, custom made, tailored websites. You know, usually with clients like these who, you know, try to keep it very simple, all they want to do is be able to, you know where they're taking their car, see the people that are working on what services they can get offered, and how to book an appointment. That's basically what they want. So Squarespace was more than enough. There's no reason to custom code a website. You know, Squarespace was $100, $120 a year for them. And with that, they get to do everything else. And then we kind of linked that into Instagram so that the analytics from Instagram were also feeding their analytics on their website. And that kind of just grows their audience. And, you know, I talked to Connor, this is the owner, and I said, yo, man, like you have to increase your Google ratings. You have to start getting customers leaving you reviews so that people trust you whenever they take your car to you. And I mean, it's pretty amazing. Like their following is now is pretty big, and you know they haven't stopped. And you would think that with COVID, because people weren't driving as much, that their cars wouldn't break down as much. That way they wouldn't have to take their cars to the garage. But these guys have been busy the entire year. Like they've been fixing cars up and down, and they're scheduled ahead of time, at least for a month right now. Like Connor calls me every day and he's like, V, I don't even know what to do. He's like, there's just so much, like I have to schedule you out if you need to come in. And I'm like, all right. So that's pretty impressive that even within a COVID pandemic world, that these businesses were, small local businesses were able to thrive. All right, this is my shameless plug. Jeff, how are we doing on time?
You're doing great. We'll go to about 5 till, so you got a good solid 10 plus minutes.
10 plus minutes. All right. Let me see. Let me share my screen. I got some other stuff. When we were talking about being migrant and doing photography, and I was telling you how I didn't know. I'm not a photographer per se, but I practice it as a hobby. And because of the things that I've been practicing, I've been able to sort of incorporate them to my business. So I wanted to show you a little bit of that. And then let me see if I can find my finder. So in my free time, I migrate to doing photography. That even though I don't want to see a computer screen all day, every day. So let me see, where is this? Okay. Let me see, let me see, let's share this. Okay, can you see what I'm sharing right there?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I'm gonna start clicking on my spacebar. Let's see if no, that's not what I wanted to do. Spacebar. Can you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So I was doing I learned how to do long exposure photography. I don't know if a lot of you guys know what this sort of entails, but it's basically putting a whole bunch of filters in front of your lens, and you just leave your shutter open and you just let it go for a long time. So the camera is pretty dark. It's kind of like doing pinhole photography. So it just lets a little bit of light in. So what happens in long exposure photography, I've always been attracted to the idea of time passing. And that's what called to me with long exposure photography. So I decided that I wanted to go around Jackson or wherever I would go and sort of, preserve these new buildings or old buildings. And I sort of came up with this little hobby. Here's, the convention center downtown in Jackson with long exposure. And those lines that you see right there, those are the clouds passing by. So this lens is open for about 8 to 10 minutes sometimes, and then I get an image that, because of the lens has a red filter on it, it's kind of looks red, but then I make it into a black and white, and I'm able to come up with this really interesting passage of time structure. This was down in my home country. There's something about whenever you leave the lens open for a long time, then the water doesn't look like water anymore. It kind of mellows out. Same thing over here at the reservoir. Look at that water. That water looks very foggy. So I migrated to doing that as a sort of a pastime, a hobby. And it turns out that eventually I got business because of it. And let me see, where is my, here we go. So this is a website I did for Republic Books, which is a a book publisher here in Jackson, right? And I was able to use my photography in order to create this UX UI. And I'm not a UX UI designer at all, but I sort of visit these other softwares, and I go to YouTube and I go to TikTok, and I try to learn as much as I can from other stuff. So I'm migrating, but then I always go back home and I use my graphic design principles to sort of bring it all together, because I think in design the principles are always the same. They just translate differently into different disciplines.
There
Um,
was a question about your fonts that you choose on these. There's that, can you add a little bit about these fonts and maybe your other projects? What kind of drives you on fonts? That was a side question.
oh, okay. Did I miss it? Let me see. Let me stop sharing my screen, and hopefully that brings in. All right. Any questions for me? What made you choose the fonts you use? Zaka, in what project were you wanting to know the font choice?
I'm still me. I didn't catch it when the message came up. I noticed you
Okay.
had sans serif. So if you just want to take one of your projects and go through your process, earlier you mentioned fonts on how they
Okay.
relate to the European car repair.
Okay.
So that was
Oh yeah.
interesting.
So the Mexican taco font.
There you go.
All right. So I think it has to do, the one that I used for the Mexican restaurant had a lot to do with just my upbringing in general. Um, and that's why I called it pulperia, because it's that little convenience store that I'm used to seeing back home in a third world country. And they will write on their walls, and it has that organic just nature to it. It has that feel of that old school sign painting on the windows, where you just kind of like brush, make, type, and that combined with the colorful nature of Latin American culture in general, how loud and vibrant it is. All of that is on purpose, like. And that's how I kind of come up with the Mexican sort of taco font. The secondary font that I use for that brand is actually a comic book font, and it's called Comic. And it just makes a lot of sense. The combination between both of them just kind of, they have that organic nature to it. It's organic like the food, while something different like European automotive, that's more sharp edge. It's German engineering. So whenever you think about the Europeans, you think about sans serifs. You don't think about serifs anymore. You don't think about slab serifs, or you don't think about something that's very ornamental or handwritten. So that's how I kind of choose my fonts, according to what the feel of the brand, or what I envision the brand looking like. Um, does that kind of answer your question, Zaka?
There's a lag in there. So there you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Uh, uh,
Uh,
on the
what
side,
question?
not to interrupt you, but I made a comment that in the past, I've seen you do huge mood boards, idea boards, and I put on there that you work your concepts very hard. It always shows. So I was giving it as a bonus. So you want to talk a little bit about is that something you still do? Big pieces of paper and boards and concepts?
I do. It's interesting. I was going through last night. I took a trip down memory lane, and I wanted to see the presentations I had done in the past for AdFed, and I bumped into the one that had to do with the mood boards that we did over at Mississippi Gulf Coast, and it's interesting how back in the day I used to spend a lot of toner by printing all these out and putting them on my on my wall. Nowadays I just kind of create a really huge artboard on my Illustrator, and whatever research I've been able to gather, I kind of just put it all together on the side of that artboard in Illustrator. So I'm able to sort of link back and forth visually as I'm working the concept. I still always sketch first. I mean, that is the most important thing that, I mean, whenever it comes to graphic design, is just sketching out and just putting it down in paper. I'll show you, I think this is one of the, like this is my little journal right now that I have. I don't know if you guys can see it because of the light, but these are all the notes. I hadn't even touched the presentation that I did for you guys today till yesterday and last night. The entire presentation I had already sketched out and outlined and organized by hand during the weekend and during the past few weeks. And then I'm like, all right, so I already know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about this. So yeah, I always try to create my concepts by hand first and just kind of think about them and mood board them and then execute after that.
Yep. Great.
All right. Let me see. How much time do we have?
2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, then I'll share one more project with you guys if you want. Let me see. Here's my desktop. Is this my desktop? Share. Let me I saved a bunch of stuff, but this is one of them. Let's do the run time lapse run strong. Let me see if I can find it. All right, so this is a project I wish. I'm going to apologize to everybody that's been visiting my website and my Instagram. Like, I really haven't had time to update anything, so you are looking at very old work. Hopefully in the next couple of months I'll have a little bit of more time to be able to update all of that. But this is one project that I did back in 2019. And by no means am I a 3D muralist or anything, but I came up with me and my friend Josh, we were hired by the people over at Run Strong to create a mural for their wall. And this is a business that specializes in people going out and running. So it has a lot to do with the running culture. So whenever we came up with this mural for their new store located over here in Brandon, I wanted to create a mural that would express what somebody feels when they run. So whenever you go out running, you're usually thinking about your health, you're thinking about you. So I wanted the letter U in the letter run to mean something more than just you. Sometimes whenever you do these 5Ks or you do these marathons, you're not only doing it for your own self, you're actually doing it for a cause. So we created this mural, and what you see, the dots on that U are actual screws. I'll go to the images over here now, and I'll show you what happens when you leave this behind for people to start collaborating. So in those little bins on the side, we started putting in color string, and every colored string had a cause. So for example, if somebody was running for somebody else because this other person that they know in their life was suffering from breast cancer, for example, then they could go to the mural and they could take that pink string and they could tie it and just create whatever sort of, whatever they felt like at that moment that they wanted to do with that string. That was it. So their entire community started putting their strings and they started putting their goals on the letters. So it was always about them, but at the same time, it was always about the community and everybody else. And those are one of the, I do not do time-lapse photography. I migrated as a hobby to doing time lapses, and this thing takes like, last time I saw you, Jeff, at Merge in 2018, I was just beginning to do time-lapse photography.
Right.
Basically what you have to do is you have to take about 500 shots to get about 6 seconds of animation. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, GoPros will do that for you automatically, but if you actually do it with an actual mechanical camera, it's kind of different. Anyways, that's
yeah. I love the first. I just put wow in the comment. I love that that display. I would expect, when you said mural, I was expecting large print applied to the wall, but that 3D is wonderful. V, I appreciate your time. I know I'm probably cutting you off a little bit. Folks, if you enjoyed this on the side, if you want to leave a comment on there, this will cut off in a moment. We've got a 4 or 5 minute break. Ryan's coming up. Remember, there's a new Zoom address or link you'll go to. V, I can't thank you enough. Folks, if you found something interesting, you can find V on social media, or you can send it to me and I will share it with him. He's been a great resource over the years and has helped us out every time. So he was my #1 go-to guy to call this time and didn't fail at all. So V, thank you so very, very much. I appreciate it. Folks, show your encouragement, visit this stuff. If you want to send me a message or a question for this afternoon, he may not be in that panel, but I will forward it to him. So, or if you have something, have some other professionals. I thought those were great examples, man. I can't appreciate you enough.
All right, well, I'm gonna send this presentation to you. It has my contact information on it
Gotcha.
as well. So if anybody wants to reach out, then my phone number is there and my
If
email and
you'll send it to
everything.
me, I will hit our distribution list and it'll go every school. So folks, if y'all
Okay.
want a copy of it to you, if it's okay, they'll use it in classrooms. If you've done that before, thank you so very, very much. Folks, it's great. I'm gonna go ahead and end this session. There's another Zoom link. You'll probably hear some more from V at another time. But thank you so much. So if you ever saw the movie Horton Hears a Who, where you have to yell at the screen to say Whoville, so everybody can scream, I'm spitting on the screen. So that's it. So I'll see y'all on another Zoom link in a few minutes. V, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Bye, everybody.